Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Raad on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've got a full house here today, and I am actually thrilled. I've known these guys, well, not long enough to basically not have them in the studio, right? But I've known them long enough to basically be really happy to see them today. And I haven't seen either one of you guys in a while, in person. And interestingly enough, the topic we're going to be talking about is technology and new media. So I'm up to date, and I think maybe vice versa on both of you from social media, but we haven't sat across the table from one another in years. So happy to have both of you guys here today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And before we proceed, I just want to remind everybody that if you are listening to us on octalkradio.net, you can also see us and listen to us on the YouTube station for OC Talk Radio, as well as the Facebook page. And if you would like to call and ask these gentlemen any questions, or basically just rant at me or whatever, or Paul, what number should they call, Paul?
The number is 949-330-7761. 949-330-7761. Operators standing by.
If I don't do that for him, he doesn't get a chance to say operators standing by, and then he's just down for the rest of the show. So we try to get that out of the way. So I want to introduce my guests. I feel like with you guys, it's like the new David Letterman show. You know?
No beard.
Well, I got the beard. It's just not as big as him. He's going for that Amish look. But it's the new David Letterman show that says, my next guest needs no introduction. Well, these two guests really, for the senior industry, don't really need any introduction, but I'm going to introduce them anyway, right? So I got John Owings in front of me. John, say hi.
Hello.
Okay, that's pretty much John right there. And then Ryan Malone sitting next to me here. And Ryan, say hello.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
There you go. That's right. So both of these gentlemen, it kind of happenstance that I was able to fortunately have them on the show at the same time. Okay, we were going to talk about John's new technology thing that he's releasing, but then I realized, and then Ryan and I connected, and I'm like, oh my God, I could bookend this conversation, which is super critical and timely, because we live in a world that's constantly more technologically connected. Information is disseminated electronically. The format of information isn't even run on text sites anymore. It's video content. It's short blasts of stuff. It used to be 1,800 words or less. Now it's give me 300 words, and I'm going to cut out some of them because I want to put a picture in there, right? So the world is changing completely. And part of this show, actually, we've been doing this for 3 years, is I think it has resonated because the world around us has changed. And that is not limited to the youth. It is definitely also something that is being experienced in the senior industry, whether it's on the delivery of services side, whether it's on the end user side. How do you keep up with some stuff? On the monitoring side, if you've got somebody in a facility, there's both in-room electronics that basically monitor depending on the level of care. There's also, reporting back from sort of the caregivers, whether it's an in-home situation or in a facility, going back to that person that was basically who admitted a parent or somebody into that facility. So the connectivity is really great. But interestingly enough, as much as that is happening sort of on the periphery, and I warned both of you guys, I'm going to say this, the industry in general is old in its thinking. Okay, it's aged in its approach. And I don't know whether I've been saying this for as long as I've known both of you. Was it 2008 when I became certified aging in place? That, oh my God, soon we will transition. Soon we're going to basically get into that, into that space, right? And that's not the case, right? And I don't know whether it's just, I saw this a little bit in hospitality, where the administrative component or the corporate component was still manned by people that were old school, and that we still have those gatekeepers in the industry. The point is, eventually we are going to adapt more of this technology, more of this access, this convenience components that are provisioned, right? So I want to start off with a little bit of history. Okay, when I first met you guys, and like again, let's say it's 2008, which I cannot believe that's 10 years ago. That's a decade ago, right? Ryan, and I don't know how we ended up meeting, other than maybe you were putting stuff out, and I was kind of hungry for information, and I came across your website, Inside Elder Care, which is still up.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we met at a happy hour, actually.
Oh, we met at a happy hour?
Yeah.
Okay, so my story was a little bit more credible, though. This happy hour thing is okay. So we met at a happy hour, and then he told me about, hey, I have this website. It's called Inside Elder Care. That was really a horrible pickup line, right? Or any kind of introduction, right? Let's break the ice talking about seniors. But 10 years ago, you were frustrated, right? There was a reason that caused you to put that website up, because that's not you're not in the senior industry per se, right?
Yep.
So give a little bit of background on what you do, or what you were doing, and what you do now. And why did you end up putting up a website called Inside Elder Care?
Yeah, so when my mom had a stroke in 2005, and she had a series of kind of complications, obstructed bowel, a staph infection in her spine, and a whole number of different things. And I lived about an hour away. She was in a skilled nursing after some surgery, and the admissions coordinator said, you should probably just put her on hospice at this point, because she's had so much. And I'm just not wired that way. I'm an entrepreneur, and my mom especially told me that, like, you never ever quit no matter what. So it just didn't really smell right. So I ran into... What
were you doing before then, Ryan? When you say you're an entrepreneur, what were you doing?
I have a digital marketing agency. We're about 40 people or so, and I ran marketing at technology companies, which are fairly fast-paced things. So there must have been a different way. So I called around quite a bit, and I realized that there were some other opportunities. And so when I went to look at those other opportunities, I treated them more like I was trying to hire somebody for my company rather than somebody to take care of my mom, which meant asking some really tough questions that I think a lot of times if you have a sick parent, you can be pretty emotional, and you're looking for the fastest way to provide them some relief, but also I think subconsciously to provide yourself some.
Well, I want to just ask you this, because I know a little bit about the story, but you were also young when you were faced with this, right?
Yeah, I was 32.
I mean, not that you're old now. I'm just saying that you were relatively young for somebody facing...
I didn't have gray sideburns then. It's kind of tragic, but I guess I'm going to go with it.
It's just been downhill, dude.
I know.
Yeah. But so you were young, and here you are facing a situation with your mother and care, and you went looking for information, right?
Yeah, I did. There wasn't a ton out there, actually. There was a lot of kind of caregiver information that talked about what happened after you found mom or dad a good place, whether that was assisted living or wherever you decided to put them.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of, like, how do you objectively choose something, and what's the question that you want to ask that community is not prepared to answer, so you can get the real scoop? And when do you go what are the best times to go look at something so that it's not like tour time, so you can really see? Right.
Yeah, it's not the glossy 8x10 that we're walking you through. What are the hard questions? And that actually applies to any industry, right? I mean,
totally.
If you have a little bit of
shopper
insight,
stuff.
Secret shopper stuff. John, would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've been involved in the senior industry. You were more involved in the senior industry, or you came into servicing the senior industry, perhaps, right?
Yeah, I've been in the industry 18 years.
Yeah.
So I started off with a actually relocation company specialized in moving seniors into assisted livings. So I help with that transition. So we see exactly what's happening within the community, how long somebody's staying, ask the families why they're moving out, what the issues were. So we have a real good inside information on what's actually going on within the community, where, like you said, everybody's going in and they get the beautiful tour and they see all the the beauty of it, and they don't see what's happening under the surface.
Now, and just to for the purpose of transparency, you guys both know each other for a while too. So it's not, this is like home.
I've actually moved Ryan's mom 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. So then,
for a reason, by the way, right? Like, it's great.
So what did you end up doing when that information that you found was sort of clinical? It was sort of more on to the caregiver's benefit, and here you are, a person trying to make a decision, somewhat objectively, for the care of your mother, and I'm assuming it's a very emotional time anyway. But you're kind of falling back to that sort of corporate or that mindset of being a business person, and trying to make a decision.
Yeah, well, I wrote all these notes down when I was going through all this stuff, and I created these kind of makeshift comparisons and stuff as I was going through it. And a year later, after they told me that my mom should go on hospice and I should just kind of count the days till she passed away, she walked into my wedding. And my wife at the time, she had a walker, but she made it, and she even had a little bit of champagne. So it was a really kind of emotional day, so much so that I completely hosed my speech at my wedding to tell my wife how beautiful she was, because I was so choked up that my mom had actually made it. And my wife was like, look, you always wanted to write a book. Like, why don't you do that now? So I wrote this book, and it turned out, and it was kind of against the grain at the time, where everything was kind of touchy-feely. This was more like, take this book, carry it in your hand, go ask these tough questions, find out what you're really going to find out, and then make a decision. Yeah. And that's kind of how I got, I kind of became really passionate about this space for, gosh, a good 10, 12 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's also something that, you know, in your case, in my case, my parents are in their 80s. John, I don't know. You know,
they're in their 80s.
Yeah, so this is a reality of our life that we live. It may not be like the focus of our day, but in the back of our heads, there's always this thing about, you know, I've got parents that are older, got family members that, you know, might get a call any minute where I need to basically be informed, aware, know how to proceed, right? And to take advantage of the time when it's not a crisis where I have to basically react right away, to inform yourself, and yet the information that's out there is either being kept very, you know, kind of guarded a little bit behind that 8x10 glossy, or it's not written for that end user, that's the layman, that is now basically faced with this decision, right?
I just did this with all three of my grandparents. Believe it or not, I've just lost all three of them in the last year or so.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah. My one grandmother, day before 100th birthday. My other grandmother, 2 days before 98th birthday. And my grandfather, he was 96.
Wow. Got great genes.
Yeah, you do.
On both sides. So, you know, we looked at different approaches for all three, because all three are completely different circumstances. My grandfather lived in Hemet, which is about 80 miles from here. And when his significant other passed away, he couldn't stay there by himself. And my parents and my uncles were killing themselves driving back and forth to Hemet every day, take him to the doctor. You know, something's happened. We had caregivers there. They wouldn't show up. So we ended up moving him closer to us, to our support system. Worked out great. My grandmother that lives in Orange County, which is about 8 miles from here, we actually moved her within a half a mile of my mother. And my mother was able to walk over there twice a day. She lost about 20 pounds, which was good for her.
Added benefit.
Added benefit. And, you know, we did in-home care for about 2 years. And then when you're getting 24-hour home care, it's not sustainable. It's too expensive. New regulations have come through for them in the last 2 years. So 24-hour caregivers are about $20,000 to $24,000 a month. It's just not, that's not a sustainable number.
Who's going to pay for that?
Exactly.
Right? Where's the money going to come from? No, I mean, the crisis that we have, that we had sort of a sense of in 2008, we are very much in the middle of that crisis, and it's only going to get more, you know, larger. The population that's going to need services larger. The way to fund and pay for it is getting bigger. You know, the resources are more scarce. Certain developed and built-out communities don't have things like large developments that are going to offset, you know, social services. So, you know, the policies are kind of not even caught up yet as far as how you change your mindset on aging communities where people are older, healthier, longer, staying in their homes. Homes are not changing hands. Property taxes aren't going up, and it's just a domino effect. And we're still kind of stuck in that mindset where we're not doing what we need to do, and just to bring it back to technology. So back in the day, I think all of us probably understood that there was a role that technology would play in this industry, just like everywhere else, right? Is that role diminished, or is it getting larger? You know, what do you guys? I know it's a loaded question given what you guys are here to talk about, but
I mean, within the senior industry itself as a whole, right now in Orange County, there's over 900 assisted livings.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a big number.
Yeah.
And their whole philosophy is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And it's really stalled as far as technology. A lot of the larger communities are adapting.
Why do you think that is, John?
It works.
I don't want to put the energy.
No. It works. So why fix it?
Also the
does it work well? Sorry, Ryan. Does it work well?
No. Okay. No, not at all.
I think also there are some communities I think that do a really good job. The problem is the capital expense to try something new means gutting your whole building to try a new living environment, to try some technology, and then you have to, which is expensive, and then you have 3 or 4 years to see if it even pans out. So then you kind of go as status quo enough for today, or you try to bolt on some things. But the challenge is the resident is 80 plus, so their ability with technology is like they're not accustomed to it for the most part.
Well, let's just say that this is for the current, guest or person that's living in there. I mean, you will be having a wave of people that are coming into there, to where technology is not as foreign an issue to them.
Yeah, but how do you build that in a way, because you can't light switch the transition, right? Slowly, people are going to become technology savvy as they get there.
Right.
But you can't. But when do you make that decision, right? Do you decide that in 5 years that shift's going to happen, and now I'm going to build it, or do you wait because it always just kind of creeps along, and then everybody has a phone or an iPad or something that you don't have
take
to.
that technology out. Take the word senior living out of it, or senior industry out of it, and tell me if that isn't exactly the same conversation that every industry has.
Exactly.
Right? As whether you're an early adapter, or you're basically once the proof of concept has happened, now you're basically a lower risk adapter, and even in that case, you may be an earlier adapter, or you're catching up and playing catch up. And I think it's all driven by market forces in a way, right? And so in this particular case, since the money is all coming mostly out of savings, we all agree that it's pretty much coming out of savings, right? Sadly or not, but that's the way it is. So then if a facility in a particular market that can basically demand a certain price for certain services actually provides that as amenities, the other people that are not providing those other amenities are going to either have to underprice themselves in order to compete and bring people in, or they're going to have to step to the bar. And I'm not saying that we're there, but we're closer to that critical mass, I think, than we were.
Yeah, and there are a few buildings that are implementing iPads into their. You walk in the door, you get an iPad, has all the daily activities, all the information on it, but they're so far in between that it's not really making a huge impact as of right now.
And why do I need an iPad if I've got a cell phone?
Are those mostly independent?
No,
living?
assisted livings.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're hybrids. They have assisted, independent, and dementia care. So you're generally 3 levels of care. They're newer buildings. Orange County has 5 new ones opening up by 2019.
Well, 900 facilities. I mean, tell me one other industry that has 900 locations in Orange County. I mean, that's a huge.
I wish it was In-N-Out because it's too far away, to be honest with you. But
Okay, make a note, Paul. Next time Ryan's in the office, we got to bring him in and out for lunch.
Got it.
But
we got the Irish whiskey for him here. He hasn't reached for it though yet.
there we go.
So
Short arms.
yeah, we're still early in the show, but so with that money facilities, I mean, we jokingly, not jokingly, we say, and I don't know other than one article that I keep referring to, that Orange County has the highest concentration of seniors per capita in the country. It's not
Correct.
Florida. And in South County, it's the largest concentration in Orange County. And now you're telling me 900 facilities in Orange County. I mean, that's like, if you think about a franchise outlets, I mean, 900 business centers for one industry. That's like, are we pretty close? I mean, I don't think Starbucks has 900 locations in Orange County.
No,
Right.
it's a huge number. A lot of them are independently run. They're little boarding cares, six beds, and the sheer number is just astronomical. And that's really where everything's come a little bit short, because how do you find these guys?
And it's not enough, by the way, because if you start adding beds and heads on beds, it's not enough for the demand. I mean, we're throwing around 900 facilities as a number, and yes, it's 6 beds or less in many cases, but there's some larger ones. But it's not enough.
No.
For the population that is really going to need that.
In 2020, there'll be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 65 in Orange County.
Wow.
It's a huge number.
Yeah, let that sink in for a minute, right? And
I was
everything,
just doing the math to see if I was in the bucket.
and everything that all the ramifications that come from that, right?
Yep.
Everything you touch, everything that's pitched to you, everything you listen to, all the interaction in public spaces. I mean, if that's the reality, wow. Paul, you had a question.
I did. As I listened to this, my own story. I've got a 93-year-old aunt who trying to figure out what to do with her here. She doesn't have any kids. She doesn't have any house. She doesn't have any savings. What's the average price for an assisted living facility, average, in Orange County? And my second question is, because I knew you were going to tell me a shocking number, what about the lot of people, like my aunt, who can't afford that?
Orange County, for a nice facility, shared room, you're looking at about $3,500 a month.
Yep.
There is some programs if she was a vet or if her husband was a vet. There is what's called aid and attendance available to them, which helps offset that quite a bit.
Yeah, she wasn't.
Yeah, was her husband?
No, she never got married.
Okay.
Never married. Literally has $10,000 in the bank. Makes earns $2,500 a month from a little tiny pension and Social Security. No house, no vet, no nothing. Can't find her anyplace.
Yeah, I mean.
So note to everybody listening that is of marrying age, marry a vet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, just go find a vet and marry him. No, I mean, I think this is a real problem that's not being addressed. Everybody, there's a growth in this population. There's an explosion in services, but it's only for the people who have saved money or who have a house that they can cash in. If you don't, you're out of luck.
Oh, absolutely. We're doing a lot of business in North San Diego County. Oceanside specifically has some really good places. San Bernardino, Hemet, but nothing within the Orange County realm. Orange County, if you're a $2,500 budget, you're looking at pretty low-end facility. Not that they're bad. They're just, it's all price driven by the house.
So why is this assumption that everybody's going to have 35, 40, I mean, it starts at 35.
Mm-hmm.
We look at places 45, 55, 65, particularly if you've got Alzheimer's.
That's not full service.
No. I've got places that are $9,000 a month, and you give them $1 million to move in. You write them a check for that.
So how many of us are going to be able to do that?
That's the big question. And the biggest issue in Orange County is the cost of land. Mm-hmm. If you're buying, I just looked at one down in Dana Point. They paid $3.4 million for the house, turned it into a boarding care. They're at $6,500 to start to get in the door. But they paid $3.4 million. So they have to pay that mortgage, and they're full.
So is everybody? I mean, they're obviously exploding. 900 of them in Orange County. There must be a lot of people who can afford this, but there's got to be an equal number or more who can't. And the assumption I got into it, listen to Ryan's story here, with my aunt and earlier with my mom was, well, there must be some sort of government assistance. There's none.
None.
And if you really get down, I don't know what it is, $2,000, your last $2,000 or some crazy figure, and you can get on Medicaid, the state version of, assistance. There are no facilities that will take Medicaid in the entire Palm Springs Valley.
No, it's state of California. There's not.
In the whole state of California, there's not?
Yeah, because they can't take government funding.
It's basically luxury accommodation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the only places that can take Medicare, Medi-Cal are skilled nursings. And unless you have a skilled need, and one of the big issues is dementia is not considered a skilled need. Right. You have to have a G-tube, a breathing tube, broken leg.
Stuff,
yeah. That's what allows you to go into skilled nursing. And the skilled nursings are driven by the insurance companies. So the insurance companies discharge you as soon as you do what they call a plateau, where you're no longer progressing, getting better.
Many times we went through that with my aunt. She'd fall. She'd go into skilled nursing for a while. Can't get her any better. She's plateaued. That's as good as she's going to get. They send her home.
Yep.
Well, and you don't have, it's the same as the medical system, right? You don't have a preventive mindset. You don't have a built-in strength through stuff that's maybe provided in a less costly, more community services kind of direction. And basically, they want you in there, but the minute you plateau, then you're out because it's all heads on beds driven.
Yeah, it's exactly heads in the bed.
Right.
We actually get the calls pretty often that the skilled nursing has discharged them to a hotel, and they paid a week worth of rent. Wow. And then we get the call, my week's up. Where do I go?
So what happens to this large population, like my aunt, who don't have any savings, who don't have a house? That's the key. That's the big thing. Everybody always says, well, she has a house, doesn't she? Will just take the house. No, she never bought a house.
Right.
And that seems to be her biggest mistake. She doesn't have long-term health care, obviously. She doesn't have vet benefits or anything else. She's not alone.
No.
There are tons of people. So what happens to this population? They just live on the street. They live in somebody's they try and find a bed to crash on, a couch to crash on.
There's a couple different strategies that we look at. One, outside the area. Obviously, Orange County's one of the most expensive places in California to live, unless you're looking at San Francisco. So we look out San Bernardino, Victorville, out north, Oceanside, and there are some places out there that we can get into for like 1,500, 2,000 if it's low levels of care. Not a secure unit, not dementia care, nothing of that nature. If a lot of times they're moving in with families contributing just to kind of sustain them. It's a real epidemic, and there's no easy solution because the government is so overwhelmed just with what they're paying for. There was a program that came out that's ALWP, Assisted Living Waiver Program, and it was a pilot program, and basically it was the government paid for assisted living if it's a care need that can be managed within assisted living that's a skilled need. They would discharge them as 5 different levels of care.
So explain all that mumbly.
Okay, so basically if you're in a skilled nursing and you had to go through rehab, they would discharge you with the ALWP program, and the government instead of paying the skilled nursing, which is $320 a day on average, they would pay that towards assisted living, and they pay like $180 a day. And then you were able to stay within the assisted living, and then the government paid directly to the program, and you had to qualify for the program. Problem
Assuming that doesn't get cut out of a budget.
Well, it already maxed out.
Yeah.
It maxed out within 6 months.
Yeah.
And there's 8,000 people on the wait list to get into that program. So, I mean, it was a great program, and it actually saved the government a lot of money in the long term, but it maxed itself out.
So for everybody else listening, my aunt, I guess, is just one of that tough luck, and I think there's a lot of more and more tough luck people. But even us, okay, so we got our house, and the house has gone up dramatically in value, and I think, okay, I'm 85, 90, I've got some problem, I'll just flip the house, and that's how I will survive. Who knows what the cost will be 10, 20 years?
Exactly. Who knows that the value of your home, even though it's in a high affluent part of the country that can garner high prices for property, actually has not been outstripped by the price of care.
Yep.
It could easily happen.
The issue is that, there is no solution. That's why I think everybody's so uncomfortable in this conversation, is that the system is really designed to either die or live healthily, but not anywhere in between.
Right. Exactly.
And so there is not really a clean option for those people, short of moving somewhere that then you're so detached from
your
the
support
network, which is almost worse, because I read somewhere that something like 30% of people in some type of residential care get one visitor a year.
Wow.
Like one visit. So,
well, if you're packing them off to North Dakota or Hemet or someplace where it's hours away here.
Well, also realize that when they build these facilities, they're building them not necessarily for the person who's going to be housed in there. They're building them for the convenience of the family member that is now going to be asked to spend the pretty penny at the high market rate to basically assuage their guilt of being too far away from that person that's housed in that facility. So when you put it, because the draw usually is between 15 to 20-minute drive. So if you're putting in a facility in where did you say, Dana Point?
Dana Point.
Okay, that means that it's for the benefit of everybody, let's say as high as Mission Viejo maybe, and south San Clemente, maybe Oceanside maybe, but it's a little too far, and then up to maybe Newport.
Right.
Okay, because that's who you are marketing to. And so when you're marketing that person, you're marketing them and you're charging them top price for the convenience of having their loved one closer by. Otherwise, you put somebody who whose family lives in Dana Point in Hemet, you might as well just put them in solitary confinement. I mean, at that point, it's like we'll get to you when we can, but we all lead busy lives. A lot of times we use that example of it's primary caregiver or a person who's making these decisions is a daughter that's in her 40s, early 50s maybe, has a family, holds a job, has kids. That and now is taking care of a parent, for example, surviving parents. So all those demands, all those pressures on the family, and yet the system is just is on the delivery side is happy to just keep doing exactly they've been doing.
I got another question for Ryan. One of the things that I'm very angry about this whole thing, because I was shocked first with my mom, then my dad, now my aunt.
Are you mad as hell and you're not getting to
I
anymore?
just tell you what, and I just don't know why people aren't shouting this from the highest rooftop, because we're all headed there, and what I've seen. The lack of facilities, the lack of affordable options, and the lack of good care, unless you have a lot of money to pay for it, is just shocking to me. And we're headed, it's like the Titanic headed towards an iceberg here. Here's one of the other things that shocked me. You go into all these facilities, went with my aunt, went with my mom, went with my dad before that, and they give you the tour. They have a billiard room. They have a movie room. And you say, see, Mom, it's not so bad. You know, they got a billiard room and all that stuff. And then you come back at the off hours. There's nobody playing pool in there. There's nobody in the movie thing. That's for you so that you have less guilt. See all the wonderful amenities. I mean, that was my impression. What was your impression as you went around to these places?
Sorry, you know that I was actually told, and I will not say by who, but by an actual company that operates assisted living, that because we were in the process of designing something, that the movie theater component is solely for the tour.
Yes, solely for the tour, so you don't feel so guilty. You're not putting them in a bed. Look, it's a wonderful place. It has this wonderful lifestyle. No, it doesn't. Nobody. They're by nature of the fact that they need assistance. They're not going to go use any of those amenities. That's for you, not for them.
What they've done recently is they started really marketing to the independent seniors. That's the really when those amenities start coming into play. I've got some communities that use their theaters and their, but they're high end.
Well, it's a high density Del Webb,
and that's independent living.
Independent
People who
living.
are still capable of wandering around and doing this. That I get. The only one I did see amenity at one of the facilities that the actual residents do seem to use is a little happy hour, although they can't serve booze. But they all love the idea of coming down.
You went to the wrong community.
Yeah.
Did it?
There's some of these communities that are happy hours. It's crazy.
Happy hour is fun there.
Yeah.
Happy hour. But so many other things that were built in and they give you in the tour that you try and make yourself feel better and try and sell your loved one that this isn't so bad are not something they're really ever going to use.
So it's kind of weird, right? I went through from a consumer perspective this whole stuff, and then in my job now, I run a marketing agency, and we work with some senior care companies, and you also have to empathize with the provider too, right? They're trying to put the affordability stuff aside because it's an unsolvable equation at this point. But if you're a provider, right, you're trying to put somebody in a place where they have some pride in their life, that they have some sense of ownership, that they have a very there's not a big gap between the life that they lived before in their house and the types of things that they do there. And in order to do that, you have to have some of those things. It may mean that not everybody uses them, but the worst thing you can do is for the actual resident is to move them into some place where there's nothing that they have. And so the communities have this dilemma where, sure, they're trying to make it nice for the family because, when you go to bed every night and you have your cell phone on your table, and anytime you get a text message from a friend or any little chirp from it, you say, "Did my mom die tonight?" There's a certain burden that they can relieve by making you feel like that they're in a safe place. And so I think to your point, not a lot of people use some of those things, and maybe the communities have chosen inaccurately based on the demographic of the people there. But there are some that we've lived in that I think do a really good job, and there are people a lot of people that watch movies, and a lot of people that do events, and there at one of the communities my mom was in, there was actually a men's club room that was like a workshop, and anytime you walked by there was 10 guys with a big sign that said "No ladies," and it was. I think it's hard to. I
don't think they've really thought through. I think a lot of it is just for the design. And I'll give you another one. Raad talked to me about this.
There's also a programming factor that some do better at than others. And I think as we progress to where we see more Gen Xers and baby boomers and Gen Xers that are active in their daily life, to Ryan's point, that are now going into these facilities, that some of the stuff that starts programming is going to become critically important, not only in terms of what is expected and should be provided, but as a differentiator.
I'm going to give you another one that shocked me. Design.
We are in California, after all, right?
Design. Raad's a designer. So he asked me once, he was working at designing a assisted living facility. And he said, what have you've been to all of them, what have you seen, what you like, what you don't like? I said, I'll give you another thing that drives me crazy. The actual design isn't really thought through from people of that age. It is a little bit. They have some handrails and some other things like that, but they have a lot of change in surfaces. You go from carpet to a slick surface, something else like that. That drives me crazy. Every time she has to change from a carpet to a thing, she freaks.
or a very busy surface, very busy carpet, where,
Lighting.
Yep.
the
Lighting.
lighting and I. Yeah.
Another one. We went to
Like
one
under-
facility, and they wanted to put her on the second floor, and she walks with a walker, with struggles, but she walks around with a walker. The elevator closed so darn fast, she couldn't get cross that threshold into the elevator
Yeah.
fast enough before the thing started closing on her. And I thought to myself, didn't some of these issues? The usability of the space. It's pretty, it's all bright, it's all white. I guess that's supposed to give it an antiseptic and an easily clean thing. But lighting changes, surface changes, they're not really
But
designed for the...
I'll tell you again, from a designer perspective, I've seen where those same challenges, those same opportunities missed, inappropriate design, if you will, occur in hospitality all over the place.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
hotels.
right,
You know,
yeah.
if your business model is maximize the buildable space where you have a lot of rooms, you're not going to put in a lot of spaces that are social gathering. You're not putting in a lot of spaces that are amenity driven, right? You know, you're not paying $3,000 a hotel room a night, but there are ones that you're paying $400 or $500 versus you could pay $60, right? So I think there's a place in the market for all that. The unfortunate thing for me is when you're a guest at a hotel, you have a lot of independence in making a choice. When you get to the point where now we're dealing with the senior community and we're dealing with basically conveniences for people that are caring as far as family members and housing people that are vulnerable population, that's when the conversation changes. That's when it becomes a moral conversation as well, not just business conversation. But no, I empathize with the people that are on the service delivery side too, right? I mean, you know, if you're building a facility to accommodate people in South Orange County and you're building it there's a certain price point that you have to meet, otherwise you're out of business. And unless you're a nonprofit or a church-based thing where you're basically getting support to lose money providing the service, or if you're, you know, a civic. And I think this is where there's an opportunity. If we can get people at the city, municipal level, on the county level, to think past this point and have a sort of nonprofit, for-profit partnership with some of these companies, and it's starting to happen a little bit, but on the daycare side of it versus.
Well, there are some facilities. Westminster, there's one that actually the city of Westminster requires them to have 8 low-income rooms in the building.
Out of how many rooms, though?
I think it's 144.
Oh my God, that's so generous.
Well,
Sorry,
the city of Cerritos actually donated land to another facility to keep it as low income, so land's paid for.
Yeah.
There
I
are.
mean, I'm sorry, I'm being
No.
jaded here, but that's what I get to do as a host.
No.
Just be jaded is
You're good at it.
I'm good at it. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. It really works hard. It's all this is great, but really, okay, it's almost like I'm almost saying like we're going to build affordable housing, and then somebody goes, well, in lieu of, here's a check.
Yeah.
And now basically I don't have to provide that. To have 8 rooms in a building of over 100 that are low income in Westminster.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all
Great. It's better than one, but it's.
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. It's business. These guys need to make money, and that's where I think where a lot of people miss the point is they've got their costs, they've got their overhead, and they've got to make money, and that's why more expensive areas, Florida Del Mar, is way more money housing than say Santa Ana.
So let me ask the other question. We've tried to touch on this a couple of times, but haven't really found too many good answers for it. Give me some other alternatives. For example, Jeff Bezos and Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway are partnering together. A lot of excitement. They're going to try and go back and rethink healthcare for their employees. Mm-hmm. Maybe it isn't a for-profit model. Maybe it's what Henry Kaiser did in the 40s when he set up Kaiser for his steel workers.
Exactly, up in Northern California.
And maybe it's not there to make healthy and as a perk or whatever here. Is there any place in the country where people are trying to come up with other models for senior care? We're going to live longer than we've ever thought.
Well, there are organizations that do that. Masonics have their own assisted living.
Right.
They take care of their own. PEOs, they have their own assisted living. They take care of their own. So there are organizations.
What are PEOs? I don't know.
PEO is a philanthropic educational organization, and it's an all-women's organization. They're fantastic. What they do is they do scholarships, and it's kind of unspoken about society, but they have their own assisted living, and they have them all over the country. So there are organizations that do that, like the Elks Club. They have some support systems that they do for their members. My grandfather's an elk, and we utilize
Volunteer
that.
of America. did some like communal stuff
Right.
where they had housing pods basically where
Right.
everybody lived together and they kind of watched out for each other. In the early days, it was actually
Well,
really
and
positive.
that village concept, as it's usually referred to, where it's a support system basically defined by either a geographically definable area, like I know that in San Clemente, for example, there's this sort of a village San Clemente organization that's trying to basically provide, you know, the old neighbor taking care of a neighbor kind of idea. You know, somebody's got a particular skill set and somebody needs service, you know, and that keeps you in your home as long as possible. That whole thing falls apart the minute you have severe medical to be housed somewhere, right? But at least the attempt now seems to be to deal with that problem, Paul, is to try to push it as far back as possible in keeping people in their own homes.
Yeah, obviously my aunt lives by herself. She's homebound, but she
Right.
lives in an apartment by herself. Meals on Wheels keeps her alive. A couple people I pay to come in and check on her throughout the week. So we're Catholic, so somebody from the church comes over once a week. You know, I try to come up with a community of people to check on her neighbors and whatnot, and I go out there as often as I can. But
So you have actually built a system that a lot of places are looking as a potential, at least alternative, to be basically frustrated and just, you know, with what's there.
And it is weird how you can, you know, maybe that's what we need to do. Think of it as more of a communal situation. There's a young couple that lives above her. They don't have any children. They view her as kind of their grandma, and they come down and check on her. There were some kids in the neighborhood. She was the only person in the 90s in the whole apartment complex. Everybody's young in the apartment complex. So they kind of viewed her as they would check on her and take her trash out and stuff. The guy who does maintenance, I got him to stop by and check on some stuff. So there's this kind of ad hoc community that we've assembled, but it changes. People come and move and whatnot. It's a transient community because it's an apartment complex. And so we've had to be creative. I've had to be creative to try and come up with this. I've thought about I wish I had an extra bedroom downstairs. The houses that are built today don't have grandma houses. You know, I have a bedroom upstairs, but she can't walk up down the stairs.
Although, to be fair to some cities now, they have basically instituted policy to allow for that.
I've heard that,
easier,
yeah.
and I think it's again trying to face the demand that's there. You know, like you got a 3-car garage. It used to be, heck no, you're not going to turn any of that into a livable space, and now some of the cities are actually willing to look at one of those being converted.
Amen. I wish we could do that, and I wish we could retrofit our house and do that.
So,
We actually bought a house in order for my in-laws to move in with us.
See, there you go.
well,
you know.
we say this all the time that when it comes, everybody talks about it scaling down, you know, shrinking
Right.
their footprint. 25% of sales to baby boomers in real estate are actually to larger homes.
Yeah.
Because they basically are acting as second homes for their grandkids, and then possibly also
Right.
taking care
Yeah.
of that
We went from 1,600 square feet to almost 4,000. Just to accommodate. It's
multi-generational.
That's exactly what it is.
Right.
And there are new homes being built in the hills in Irvine that are basically be geared towards maybe the Chinese buyer
Very
or
big,
whatever, but
'cause-
where it's multi-generational in the configuration of the family. So here's a home that basically accommodates those needs as you age. John, before we run out of time, this is obviously a very fascinating conversation, and technology has a very big role to play to help us maybe navigate or even come up with solutions. So you've come up with something. I mean, we talked about Ryan's and with the page and kind of out of necessity, but it became a very important resource. And a lot of people, including myself, thank you for the opportunity back in the day to actually write and share what's frustrations and, you know, possible things. And it's still up there, and it's inside eldercare.com, right?
Yes.
So please go check it out. I think it's got valuable information that's timeless, honestly. Ignore the dates on some of this stuff, but it's actually timeless. And John, you're doing something now that's kind of interesting.
Right. So what we've done, like I said, I've been in the industry 18 years, coming up on 18 years in a couple months. And what we found is, and I started this 10 years ago, and I was manually inputting everything, is that there's not really a good general location to find all the resources. So what we decided to do was create a mobile platform, because who doesn't own a smartphone? I mean, really.
Yeah.
I think my father is the only person in Orange County that doesn't have one. And we created a mobile platform. It's called Successful Aging Resources, and it's a general location where you can find a lot of needed resources. We're doing resources for caregivers and families, so you can find support groups. We're doing we're allowing, it's kind of almost like a Facebook where you can create your own profile on there for assisted livings and home care and hospice, all the different resources, and they're controlling it. If you go on the internet, you'll
They
see
being the end user.
the end
They,
user.
the you and me.
Well,
Not the provider.
the provider's actually
the
controlling their own content on within
I see.
within the app. If you go to the internet, you do a Google search for assisted living.
Yeah.
You're going to get all the different placement agencies. You're going to get all, but it's not the actual assisted livings you're getting. You're getting it through a third party source.
The clearinghouse.
So so there's a lot of muck that gets in there, and ours is all geo-based. So if you're looking for an assisted living close to where you're living, it'll tell you exactly how far away it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking things like a place for mom or other agencies that that provide that kind of service. But what you're saying is, I've got a GPS locator on my cell phone. I got an app on my phone. I need a particular thing relevant to aging, and I basically go on that app, and it's basically
It's right there.
more closer customized to my needs based on my search parameters.
Right, and you don't have to deal with a third party. And then if you do need, if you're looking for something that actually is there, just call us. My database has over 8,000 contacts in Orange County, so there's something out there for everybody.
So is this currently a rollout in Orange County only?
Correct. Right now we're rolling out in Orange County. We launched it January 1st, so we're really brand new. We're getting content up there. We're working with a couple pretty good sized organizations that are real interested in it, and it's going to be we're hoping it's going to be a really good resource, not only for professionals but for caregivers.
And again, what's the name?
It's Successful Aging Resources.
And where can people
download it
that?
off either the Apple Store or the Google Store.
Under Successful Aging
Yep.
Resource?
You know what I liked about it when I was playing with it is that if you say you're in this situation, you're super emotional, you have no leverage to make the right decision. But and if I had John's app when I was younger, then I could have educated myself really clearly. I think we got lucky and found some good places, but I think the difference is the place for mom and the other places, they come from a business model which is designed around being paid to put people in places.
Right.
John's angle from educate somebody first. And by the way, now that you're educated, here's some options for you. I think is so much more empowering for the person it's really, really useful.
Well, this is why I thought, again, happenstance that the two of you being available and having you on the show, because it literally, when I was listening to John and finding out more about this, it reminded me of what you tried to do with Inside Elder Care back in 2008, where it was basically providing that information to help people filter through stuff. Okay, and here's John taking it to that next evolutionary step of actually putting more control and independent control in your own hand, literally, to do that as need be, on demand.
Yeah, and it's technology driven, and technology has come so far in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy. My phone has more computer skill than my computer did back then.
Absolutely. So let's share the websites, because I want everybody to have the chance to basically check you guys out before we run out of time. So again, John, give your information.
It's downloadable app. It's Successful Aging Resources. Just download it. It'll ask you to log in. We just do that just so we can keep track of our users. And it's got just a plethora of information on it.
And this is not all that John does, because you have other things that you do. So give that
Correct.
other website
so
too.
I also have a relocation company. We specialize in moving seniors from home to assisted living and moving from into higher levels of care as you age. So with that, we generally touch somebody 3 to 4 times, throughout the aging process. I moved Ryan's mom, 3 times?
3 times.
And what's the website?
It's helpinghands-online.com.
Again, very much a pillar, I would say, in the senior community in Orange County for sure, and very highly
recommended. For
Absolutely.
Sure.
And here you go. There's a recommendation. So you don't have to pay me. I brought him in for you, right? And then Ryan, let's give your website too. Both the one with information, also where they can reach you. Should they be on the provider side looking for that sort of sensitivity and nuanced knowledge base when they are basically going to market their services to seniors?
Sure. So Inside Elder Care is the resource that I created for families that are trying to find a more proactive and informed way to handle their loved one's transition. And then I run an agency that is a digital marketing agency called Smart Bug Media, which is smart bug like a fly media.com, and we focus on helping healthcare and technology companies create more revenue and leads for their businesses.
So InsideElderCare.com and SmartBugMedia.com.
Yep.
Right? And then Successful Aging Resource
And Helping Hands
and
Relocation.
Helping Hands Relocation. And would you guys say that you're optimistic? Are we empowered by these things? Like, or I mean, are we just basically trying to hold away like a dam that's about to break. How optimistic are you? We're all going to be facing it, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
we're all
if it's
in
not
that-
you, it's your family, it's your friends, it's
Forget my family, dude. I'm going to have face it pretty soon enough myself. I mean, what do you think?
I think we're going to have a landslide here shortly. The baby boomers are coming, and the issue is being able to afford everything. That's really the biggest issue because I couldn't afford $6,000 a month if I had to move into assisted living. I physically couldn't afford it at this point.
You know what I find fascinating is a lot of politicians, until this last couple of election cycles, a lot of politicians that we have, both on the municipal level and higher, right, are either Gen Xers or boomers themselves. Some of them are either like hardcore, stick around long-term, career politicians that are even older, right? And I am yet to see some really clear, defined policy, innovation, leadership on this issue, which is ironic
because they have a pension.
Wow. I kind of set it up, and I was hoping somebody was going to pick up the ball. Thank you, Ryan. I
It was a
appreciate it.
softball. I had to
Yeah,
swing it.
yes, thank you. Yeah, because they have a pension. So for the rest of us that don't have that safety net, okay, this is something we all need to be involved in on every level, on the delivery of service level, on the policy level, on the how do we structure for the next 10, 20 years. And the thing about it is, as one wave of consumer, if you will, goes out, there's another one coming in. So, I mean, sorry if you're not going to make money on the Gen Xers because we're a small group, but here comes the millennials, and they're going to be as big as the baby boomers. So, get smart about this. It's a win-win if you get ahead of it. Otherwise...
So I'm optimistic for two reasons. One is I think that I'm 45, so my generation seems to be far more kind of European or even Southeast Asian about taking care of their family, where it's really traditional that you play a far more active role in your family's aging. I see that a lot more than I did with the generation before. And the other reason is that you have this whole generation of kind of incremental improvement entrepreneurs that are out there that are trying to solve a small problem and every day make incremental improvements, as opposed to somebody trying to solve the whole thing at once.
In one go.
And
That's a
all
very
those
good point.
people are running their businesses based on, how do I improve something? How do I measure it? How do I improve it again? How do I measure it? And I think that there's a wave of innovation that is starting to touch on more traditional healthcare, but we'll hit this second that is based around that. So I'm pretty confident that somebody will do something at least better. May not solve it.
Yeah.
But
well, we all
push us
have
in
a
the right
role to
direction.
play to move it forward and make it better than we find it. I mean, the old adage of not leaving it leaving it better than you found it. So, with that being said, I appreciate you gentlemen both being here today. It was really a treat for me to both see you and have a chance to share this stuff with you. You're welcome anytime. Come back, and we're going to leave it better than we found it. So everybody, next week, same time, same place, the Raad Life. You need to get hold of me on Gmail. You can email me, Raad, R-A-A-D, Gantus, G-H-A-N-T-O-U-S, @gmail.com. Look us up on Facebook. Let us know what you think of the shows. You have these guys' information. Reach out to them. They're invaluable resources when it comes to this. And I vouch for them as really good guys, too. So see you next week.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Raad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.